The oxygen surprise. The Star Weaver glided silently through the inky blackness of space, its sleek hull cutting through the cosmic void like a knife. Commander Travis Ree stood before the large viewport, his broad shoulders reflecting in the glass, his expression hard as he observed the planet ahead. New Athena, a world of mystery and history, loomed large in the distance, its surface dotted with ancient ruins and advanced scientific complexes. It had taken decades to build a city capable of housing multiple species from all over the galaxy, each requiring different atmospheric conditions. The underground complex of New Athena was the result of these efforts, a marvel of technology, seamlessly blending the old with the new. The ship's gentle hum was the only sound in the command deck, a reminder of the advanced technology that kept the Star Weaver running smoothly. Travis' eyes moved across the controls of the command station, his thoughts focused on the upcoming diplomatic mission. New Athena was home to not only cutting-edge scientific research, but also held secrets that had been hidden for thousands of years. It was here that humanity's future, and possibly the fate of several galactic civilizations, might be decided. "Commander, we're nearing the Nexus," came the calm, melodic voice of Lieutenant Alamoon. Her porcelain-white skin was almost luminescent under the ship's ambient lighting, her long silver-white hair falling in a cascade down her back. Ala's pointed ears twitched slightly as she adjusted the ship's trajectory with graceful precision, guiding the Star Weaver closer to the planet's entry port. She was calm, controlled, a stark contrast to the growing sense of anticipation building in Travis' chest. Travis turned his head, his voice carrying the natural authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Take us in, Lieutenant. Prepare for landing." Ala nodded and adjusted the ship's course as they neared the vast and impressive docking bay. The Star Weaver passed through the towering docking port and into the force field that separated the bay from the vacuum of space. The blue light from the force field reflected off the ship's smooth hull, casting ethereal glows on the metal walls surrounding them. Travis stared at the massive expanse of New Athena's underground city, a sprawling high-tech metropolis nestled within a network of ancient ruins. It was a world in which the past and future lived side by side, each interconnected, like two halves of a puzzle. "Commander, the atmosphere readings are coming in," Ala reported, her voice filled with an edge of concern. "It's primarily oxygen-based. This could be problematic for us." Travis' attention snapped to her, his expression unreadable. He watched as Ala's normally calm and collected demeanor faltered slightly. "What do you mean, Lieutenant?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. Ala turned to him, her face flushed with concern. "The atmosphere is 90% oxygen. Most species, my own included, cannot survive in such an environment without protection. We'll need to suit up, Commander. The oxygen levels could be deadly for us if we don't take precautions." Travis, however, wasn't concerned. He had been to numerous alien worlds, each with its own set of environmental challenges. But this was different. This was an opportunity to educate his fellow officer about just how unique humanity was. With a calm, almost amused expression, he stood and began to stroll toward the airlock. "Commander," Ala's voice carried a note of alarm, her hands already reaching for the environmental mask. "What are you doing? You'll die without protection." Travis shot her a look, his lips curling into a smile. "Lieutenant, there's something you should know about humans." As the Star Weaver docked in the landing bay with a soft, welcoming hiss, the doors to the ship slowly opened. Travis stepped forward without hesitation, his body exuding confidence. He inhaled deeply as the rich, oxygen-laden air entered his lungs. The atmosphere was so pure that it felt almost surreal, nothing like the recycled air of the ship. To him, it felt like home. "Smells like home," he muttered under his breath. Ala's eyes widened behind her mask as she watched him breathe in the oxygen-rich air without any protection. "You can breathe oxygen?" she asked in disbelief, her voice muffled by her mask. She had never seen a species that could survive in such an environment, let alone thrive in it. Trevis' grin only grew wider as he turned to face her. "Breathe it. Hell, we need it to live, Lieutenant." He slapped a hand against his chest. "Earth's atmosphere is about 21% oxygen, but it's exactly what our bodies need to function. Every single cell in our body requires it." Ala was speechless, her eyes studying him with a mix of amazement and confusion. But oxygen is reactive. It's corrosive. How can your species possibly survive in such conditions?" Ree chuckled, taking another exaggerated breath, his chest puffing out with pride. "You see, Lieutenant, evolution is a hell of a thing. My species has been adapting to this environment for millennia. And now, we can't live without it. Oxygen might be deadly to other species, but to humans, it's vital." Alad remained silent for a moment, processing the information. Humans were a paradox, a species that thrived where others struggled, evolved in environments that would destroy the majority of the galaxy's civilizations. She had always heard stories of humanity's adaptability, but she had never truly understood it until now. The sheer resilience of the human body to survive in such an environment was unlike anything she had ever encountered. "Commander," Ala said after a long pause, her voice filled with newfound respect, "your species continues to surprise me." Trevis chuckled again, brushing past her with a casual air. "We're full of surprises, Lieutenant. We're not just oxygen brothers. We are apex predators, too. Earth's a high-gravity death world. It makes this place look like a vacation resort." As they made their way down the ship's ramp and onto the surface of New Athena, the true purpose of their mission began to unfold before them. The underground ruins of New Athena stretched out before them, a labyrinth of gleaming metal corridors that intertwined with ancient stonework. The air was thick with the history of the place, an unsettling quiet that contrasted sharply with the hum of technology. It was a city of secrets, and Trevis and Alad were here to uncover them. "We need to investigate these ruins," Trevis said, his voice firm, his focus now entirely on the task at hand. "These ruins may hold secrets not just about your species, but also about humanity. Perhaps they will tell us something about our past, something we never knew we shared." As they entered the complex, Ala's analytical mind went into overdrive. Her fingertips brushed against the ancient stone walls, examining the intricate carvings that covered their surface. The symbols seemed familiar, but there was something distinctly different about them, something that couldn't be ignored. "This is remarkable," Ala said softly, her voice reverberating off the stone. "These markings are similar to some we found on Sphanis, but these are far older. We estimate they're at least 50,000 years old." Trevis moved closer to examine the wall with her, his trained eye spotting something that others might have missed. "Look here," he said, pointing to a series of glyphs that seemed to describe different atmospheric compositions. "This one represents Earth's atmosphere," he murmured, tracing his finger along the pattern. Ayla leaned in closer, her breath catching in her chest. "Impossible," she whispered. "These ruins predate humanity's space age by millennia. How could they know about Earth's atmosphere?" Trevis stood there for a long moment, his thoughts racing. If these ruins were as ancient as they appeared, what other secrets lay hidden within them? And why was humanity, an upstart species from a seemingly insignificant planet, being tied to a history they had never known? The answers, Trevis knew, were buried deep within these walls, echoes of the past. The ancient corridors of New Athena stretched out before Commander Trevis Ree and Lieutenant Ala Moon like a forgotten dream, their footsteps echoing against the stone and metal floors. The atmosphere was thick with the scent of dust and age, but there was an electric charge to the air, an almost tangible sense that something ancient was about to reveal itself. The dim lights along the walls flickered as if the building itself was awakening, responding to the presence of the explorers. Ala's movements were measured, her analytical mind fully engaged. Her silver hair shimmered in the faint glow as she traced her fingers along the carvings that covered the walls. These symbols, though worn by time, seemed to tell a story, a history that no one had dared to imagine. Her gloved fingers brushed over intricate designs that glowed faintly, pulsing with a strange energy, like the ruins themselves were alive, quietly guarding secrets older than any civilization in the galaxy. "I've never seen anything like this before," Ala muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "This structure is a blend of technology and ancient craftsmanship. It's as though the old and new have been fused together. And these markings, they appear to be more than just artistic expressions." Trevis, who had been scanning the surroundings with a trained eye, nodded in agreement. His fingers instinctively brushed against the surface of a nearby wall, his senses sharp, picking up on details that others might miss. The pattern was complex, but the shapes and symbols seemed familiar, resonating with a kind of primal recognition. He stepped closer, his breath steady as he inspected the glyphs with growing curiosity. "This wall," Trevis began, "it's describing something important. These markings, they're too precise to be random. They don't just show atmospheric compositions, they speak of worlds, of civilizations, and perhaps even of us." He paused, squinting at a symbol that seemed to pulse with a faint energy. "This one," he continued, "represents Earth's early atmosphere, but these symbols around it, they're showing something else, something even older." Ayla, still reeling from the implications of their discovery, leaned in to inspect the section Trevis had pointed out. As her gloved fingers hovered over the ancient markings, her mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle that was unfolding before them. "It's impossible," she muttered. "This is pre-space age technology, Commander. These ruins predate any known species' spacefaring era by at least 50,000 years. Yet they knew about Earth long before we even developed our first interstellar ships." Trevis stepped back, crossing his arms over his chest, his mind working furiously. The magnitude of what they had discovered was just beginning to sink in. This wasn't just an ancient relic. This was evidence of an unknown connection, a shared history between their species that neither of them could have imagined. It was too much to process all at once, but there was no denying it. They were standing in the remnants of a civilization that had knowledge of humanity, a civilization whose secrets were about to change everything. "Commander, what if our species aren't strangers to each other?" Ala asked, her voice soft but tinged with uncertainty. "What if we share a history that has been lost to time?" Trevis looked at her, his eyes narrowing slightly as he considered her words. The thought was staggering. Could it be possible that their two species had crossed paths long before they had ever known? He had always thought of humanity's journey through space as a solitary endeavor, a species alone in the cosmos, clawing its way up from the ashes of its own violent history. But now, standing in these ancient ruins, it was beginning to feel like humanity had been part of something much larger, something far more profound. "We'll need to find more answers," Trevis replied, his voice steady, though his mind was filled with questions. "This is just the beginning, Lieutenant. Whatever this place holds, it's linked to our past. To all of us." A sudden rumble beneath their feet interrupted the moment, sending vibrations through the stone and metal structures surrounding them. Dust and debris fell from the ceiling, causing Ala to instinctively reach for her weapon, her fingers brushing the handle of her energy blade. Trevis' hand went to his plasma pistol, his eyes scanning the darkness for any signs of movement. "That wasn't natural," Trevis muttered under his breath. His senses were heightened, every muscle in his body on alert. The quiet of the ruins had been shattered, and he wasn't sure if it was a sign of danger or something else, something deeper, more troubling. Ala's voice was tense. "I'm detecting multiple movement signatures converging on our location, Commander. They're close." The ground shook again, and this time, the sound of stone grinding against stone filled the air. Trevis motioned for Ala to take cover behind a massive pillar that stood in the center of the hallway. As they crouched behind the stone structure, the atmosphere grew thick with anticipation. Something was coming, and it wasn't friendly. "Ready for a fight, Lieutenant?" Trevis asked, his voice low and gravelly, filled with the steely calm of a seasoned soldier. Ala nodded, her eyes flashing with resolve. "I'm always ready, Commander." The sound of clanking metal and distant hisses reached their ears as something, or someone, approached. Shadows moved along the walls, and soon the unmistakable shape of armored figures emerged from the darkness. Trevis' pulse quickened as he recognized the silhouette of a drachnid, a massive insectoid species that was known for its brutal nature and its imposing presence. The drachnids, with their compound eyes and heavy, segmented armor, approached slowly, their movements deliberate and menacing. At their helm stood a towering guard, its mandibles twitching with irritation as it noticed the unprotected human standing calmly in the midst of its territory. "Credentials," the drachnid demanded, its voice a strange clicking sound as it spoke in the universal language. The creature's multifaceted eyes remained fixed on Trevis, clearly puzzled by his lack of atmospheric protection. Ala stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "We are here on diplomatic business," she explained, showing their identification codes. "We seek access to the archives of the ancient ruins, specifically the records of early interspecies contact." The drachnid guard processed their credentials, its massive eyes scanning the information before it turned toward Trevis once again. Its voice was low and laced with disbelief. "The human requires no atmospheric protection." The drachnid seemed unable to fathom how this could be possible. Trevis gave a casual grin, his stance relaxed, despite the danger. "None whatsoever," he replied smoothly, though his hand never left the handle of his weapon. "Though if you've got some coffee, I wouldn't mind a cup." The drachnid guard hesitated for a moment, clearly taken aback by Trevis' audacity, before the massive energy barrier that blocked the way shimmered and dissolved. With a low grunt, the drachnid gestured for them to proceed. "Proceed," it commanded, "but stay vigilant." Trevis and Ala exchanged a glance, both understanding the implications of their encounter. They were moving deeper into the ruins, but with each step, the mysteries of this place grew more complex. The ancient archives held secrets about humanity, secrets that might explain their origins, their unexpected survival in hostile environments, and their place in the broader galactic history. But now, with the drachnid guard and the tremors beneath their feet, they both knew that the past was not only waiting to be uncovered, it was waking up, and it might not be so eager to reveal itself. As they moved deeper into the ancient complex, they entered a chamber where the walls seemed to pulse with energy, the air thick with the weight of forgotten knowledge. The walls themselves told stories, stories of a past that no one had remembered, stories that would reshape everything they thought they knew about their origins. "Commander," Ala whispered, her voice filled with awe. "Look at this. These symbols. They're describing something. Something monumental." Trevis stepped closer, his gaze focused on the wall. The story it told was clear. Humanity was not alone, nor had they ever been. Secrets beneath the surface. The deeper Trevis and Ala ventured into the ruins of New Athena, the more the air seemed to hum with unseen energy, as though the very walls were alive, watching them. Every corner they turned revealed new mysteries, hidden beneath layers of time and dust. The tension from their encounter with the drachnid guard had not subsided, and with each step, the growing unease began to settle like a weight on Trevis' chest. The ancient technology was more advanced than anything either of them had ever encountered, and its silent presence made the atmosphere feel both eerie and full of promise. "Commander," Ala whispered, her voice hushed as if speaking too loudly might disturb the very structure they walked through. "This place, it's not just a ruin. These systems, they're still functioning. I can feel it." Trevis nodded, his eyes scanning the walls for any sign of movement. He could sense it too, the pulse of an ancient power that seemed to vibrate in the very air. "I've never seen anything like it. This place is old, older than any civilization we know, but it feels alive." They moved forward cautiously, careful not to disturb anything that might trigger a hidden defense system. The walls, once smooth and pristine, now bore the scars of time. Cracks that ran deep, as though the complex had endured centuries of pressure. Some sections were covered in layers of dust, while others glowed faintly with a strange, pulsating energy. The light seemed to emanate from the stones themselves, a sign of the long-forgotten power source that still ran through the ruins. "We should proceed carefully," Olive advised, her keen eyes scanning the ceiling, the floor, and every corner of the room, as if expecting something to spring to life at any moment. These systems might still be connected to the archives. If we accidentally trigger something. "I know," Trevis interrupted, his tone calm but firm. "But we need to move quickly. The further we go, the more I'm convinced that what's buried here could change everything." Ala fell silent, her gaze falling to the glowing symbols on the walls that seemed to tell a story far older than any written history. As they walked, the soft hum of the ancient power system continued to vibrate through the ground, as if encouraging them to move forward. They entered a vast chamber that seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. It was larger than anything they had encountered so far, and the sheer size of it made even Trevis' seasoned nerves tingle with a sense of foreboding. The ceiling, though hidden in shadows, had high arches that reached far above them, while the walls were lined with enormous cylindrical structures, tubes that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. "Look at this," Ala breathed, her voice filled with awe as she stepped forward to examine one of the cylinders. "This material, it's not like anything we've seen before. It's as if it's resonating." Trevis approached cautiously, his hand resting on the cool surface of one of the tubes. He could feel a faint vibration, like the deep hum of a forgotten song. His gaze shifted to the floor beneath them, and he noticed that the ground was covered in strange, geometric patterns, symbols not dissimilar to those they had seen earlier. But here, the symbols seemed to form a complex grid, a map of sorts, stretching out over the entire floor. "This is no ordinary archive, Lieutenant," Trevis said quietly, his voice laced with the gravity of the realization. "This place is more than a storage vault. It's a nexus, a center for knowledge, and I think it's been waiting for us." Ala crouched down to examine the symbols more closely, her brow furrowed as she traced one of the lines with her fingers, the touch sending a ripple of light through the pattern. "It's almost as if these symbols are a guide, a map, as you said. But to where? What are they leading us to?" Before Trevis could answer, the ground beneath them trembled again, this time with far more intensity. Dust fell from the ceiling in thick clouds, and the lights flickered ominously. For a moment, it seemed as if the entire chamber was about to collapse. Ayla instinctively drew her energy blade, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of immediate danger. "Get ready, Lieutenant," Trevis said, his voice steady but filled with anticipation. "I have a feeling that whatever lies beyond this chamber isn't going to be as easy to find as we thought." Suddenly, the floor beneath them shifted, and with a loud grinding sound, a massive section of the wall slid open, revealing the hidden passageway. The passage was narrow, with walls that seemed to pulse with the same strange energy as the cylinders. Trevis and Ala exchanged a glance, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. This was it, the heart of the complex, the point of no return. Without a word, they moved forward into the passageway, their weapons drawn, eyes alert. The air grew colder as they descended deeper into the complex, and the further they went, the more the sense of unease grew. They passed through a series of smaller chambers, each more intricate and mysterious than the last. There were no other signs of life, no movement, no sound, but the feeling that they were being watched never left. As they reached the end of the corridor, they arrived at a large, circular room. The walls were lined with enormous, glowing consoles, each one displaying what appeared to be holographic maps of different star systems, some of which were far outside the known galaxy. The consoles flickered erratically, their once steady projections now disorienting and unstable. At the center of the room, however, stood a pedestal, a single, solid structure that seemed to be the focal point of the room. Alla stepped forward, her fingers brushing the surface of the pedestal. "What is this place, Commander?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with reverence. "What are we really standing on?" Trevis approached the pedestal, his gaze never leaving the holographic projections that danced in front of him. "I think we're standing on the crossroads of history," he said quietly. "This place wasn't just a hub for scientific research. It's a repository of knowledge, of galactic history, lost to time." As he reached out to touch the pedestal, the room hummed with energy, and the holographic displays flickered violently. Then, as if reacting to their presence, the pedestal came to life. A low, resonant sound filled the room, and the console's projections stabilized, focusing on one central point: Earth. The room seemed to pulse with a newfound energy as the holograms displayed detailed star maps that surrounded Earth, some of them far older than their current positions. Trevis' eyes widened as he realized what they were seeing: evidence of ancient civilizations that had interacted with Earth, long before humanity even knew how to travel beyond their own planet. These records, Allah breathed, they show Earth's interactions with other species, long before we ever reached the stars. Trevis took a step back, his heart pounding as the enormity of the discovery sank in. "Not just interactions, Lieutenant. These maps show that Earth was once a central point in a much larger galactic community. We were a part of something far bigger than we ever knew." The implications of this discovery were staggering. As the holograms shifted and displayed more intricate details, Trevis and Alla could barely comprehend what they were seeing. But one thing was clear: humanity's place in the galaxy had been far more significant than anyone had ever realized. A sudden noise broke their reverie, a sharp mechanical sound, followed by the unmistakable hum of approaching footsteps. Something was coming, and whatever it wasn't friendly. "Stay sharp, Lieutenant," Trevis warned, his voice low. "We're not alone here. And whatever's coming, it knows we found something important."